Today I will share a story with you where you'll see how important it is to have the affection of a sibling. This film starts by introducing us to a talkative guy named Greg, who writes in his diary and shares that he truly yearned to spend quality time with his older brother because he admired him a lot and wanted to learn many things from him. However, this lazy good-for-nothing named Rodrick spent his days sleeping or playing music with his friends, so he constantly ignored his little brother. One day, their parents tell Greg that they're going on a trip, and since they're leaving with their little brother, all the responsibility of the house falls into the hands of Greg and Rodrick. We see that as soon as they leave, the mischievous Rodrick surprises Greg by telling him to get ready because that night they would throw a huge party, even though Greg doesn't support it. The deceitful Rodrick sweetens the deal by telling him that they will finally do something together as brothers, and Greg thinks he's accepting to support him. He sends messages in a group chat and invites all his friends to the party. Then, Rodrick asks Greg if he had friends who could help him prepare everything, and the introverted Greg tells him that he only had one best friend named Rowling, and his brother convinces him to ask them for help with the preparations. After that, the nerdy Rowling arrives, thinking it's a children's party. So, Greg asks him not to embarrass him in front of his brother because he really wanted to make a good impression. The two best friends start fixing everything while the lazy Rodrick does nothing but boss them around. Finally, after doing several things, everything seems to be ready. At one point, Rodrick sends the kids to fetch another table from the attic. Without them suspecting anything, the cunning Rodrick locks them in. A few minutes later, Greg tries to open the door with all his strength, but when he can't, he discovers with disappointment that his brother just used him. Suddenly, the rowdy guests start arriving, doing all sorts of fun things in the house, like skating on the table, splashing in the sink, or sliding on the roof. Angry Greg takes revenge by taking photos of everything that's happening. The next day, Greg manages to free himself and turns the music up to the highest volume to kick all of his brother's drunken friends out of the house. Then, he confronts Rodrick, blaming him for everything he did and threatening to tell their parents about the party. However, Rodrick doesn't seem bothered until he receives a call from his mother, saying they'll be back home that same afternoon because the baby is very sick. Feeling cornered, Rodrick gets down on his knees, begging Greg for help to clean up the mess. Although Rowling refuses, he eventually agrees when he's moved by Rodrick's plea. Rodrick blames himself and promises to be a real brother from that moment on. Both of them start cleaning every messy corner of the house. Meanwhile, their parents rush home for the sick child. The brothers mop the floor, kick the last drunk guests out of the house, and clean the paintings. They manage to finish just as their parents arrive. Their mother greets them normally, but their father seems suspicious that something odd happened there. After that day, he starts keeping an eye on them and searching the house for clues. This makes the nervous Greg tell his brother that he was going to tell the truth to their dad because he was going to find out anyway. But Rodrick calms him down, saying that their dad would never find out because they erased all the clues. He assures Greg that he will reward his loyalty by giving him crucial survival tips. So, Greg agrees, and his brother begins to share Rodrick's famous rules, pearls of wisdom that will help you live better. For instance, not creating expectations by doing chores so your parents won't expect anything, or filling the black bags with only a little trash to make your mom pay you more money, or going to the bathroom just when they're doing the dishes. The next day, the nerdy Rowling goes to Greg's house and almost accidentally reveals everything to his parents. Greg quickly takes him away, warning him that he can't accuse him because they are now accomplices. Later, Greg goes to Rodrick to ask him to lend him his precious drum kit. Surprisingly, not only does Rodrick agree, but he also teaches Greg how to play. You have potential, little brother. Just then, Rodrick's whole band arrives, and they kick Greg out to rehearse. But Rodrick surprises him again by asking him to stay with them. Later, their parents tell Greg and Rodrick that they would spend another weekend away, and the boys should stay with their grandpa. After a few days, while playing board games with their grandpa, Rodrick ends up spitting water on Greg, wetting his pants. Greg has to go change in the hallway, and while walking, some elderly ladies mistake his situation for an accident. Rodrick rushes to the bathroom, unknowingly entering the women's restroom. Soon, the elderly ladies find his pants and realize there's a peeping Tom. They start chasing Greg, who has to run through the place naked, attracting the police and causing a group of seniors to throw all sorts of things at him, calling him a pervert. Despite everything, Greg manages to hide and return to his grandpa's room without Rodrick suspecting anything. Later, Rodrick falls asleep, and the grandpa talks to Greg, expressing his regret at seeing his son so distant. He knows that Greg's father didn't have a good relationship with his own brother, not even on special occasions. Upon hearing this, Greg becomes lost in thought. After several days, the boys return home, and Greg discovers he forgot to do his homework. So, Rodrick sells him one of his old school assignments for a lot of money in exchange. But when Greg gets to school, he realizes that the assignment was garbage. He goes to Rodrick to confront him, asking for his money back. Not only that, but he also blackmails him by showing him the photos he took at the party. Rodrick has no choice but to return the money to Greg, who leaves very happily with the photos. However, he bumps into his mother, and the photos go flying all over the place, leading his mother to discover the party. Their parents give them a lecture and punish both brothers. This leaves Rodrick frustrated as he can't perform with his band at the school talent show. They take away his video games as a punishment. Later, their mom sends them to do the dishes, and an enraged Rodrick tells Greg that he can't stand him being a dirty snitch. He also threatens that he will get back at him because the only reason he was behaving was that Greg had something to blackmail him with, which wasn't true anymore. Later, Rodrick enters Greg's room, showing him his diary and telling him that after seeing the pictures, he now knows Greg went into the women's bathroom. He threatens to send the messages to everyone at school, so Greg chases him, making Rodrick drop the phone. Then, Rowling catches him, but in his clumsiness, he tries to show off and accidentally sends the message. The next day, he thinks he's going to be utterly embarrassed but musters the courage to go to school. To his surprise, he finds that he has become a celebrity. Everyone is cheering for him, lifting him up, asking for photos and autographs. This happened because the rumors about the bathroom incident spread, but as they passed from person to person, the story changed. Now, students believe that the police had chased Greg for crashing a bingo game and winning. Later, the family goes to the talent show, where Greg is prepared to be humiliated to support his friend Rolly with his silly magic act. As he's about to enter the hall, Rodrick's band members intercept Greg and ask him to be their new drummer. Greg declines, saying he can't because he's performing with Rolly. They persist, telling him that if he agreed, one of them was willing to impersonate him for Rolly's performance. The talent show begins, featuring various ventriloquists, musicians, and singers. When it's almost Greg's turn, his brother starts teasing him, calling his act ridiculous. But what Rodrick doesn't expect is his own band coming out and introducing their new drummer, Greg. Seeing his little brother's excellent performance, Rodrick feels betrayed and leaves the stage in tears, making Greg feel guilty for betraying him and abandoning Rolly. Greg goes after Rodrick to apologize, explaining that he didn't take his place in the band to upset him but to make him proud. Surprisingly, Rodrick apologizes for taking his diary. Afterward, Greg tells Rodrick that if they continue this way, they'll end up like their dad, who never saw his siblings anymore. Rodrick responds that they'll always be there for each other despite their differences. With that said, the brothers ignore Rodrick's punishment. He returns to the stage with his band, rescuing their performance that was being booed. They dazzle the audience. However, Greg's parents tell him they're going to extend his punishment. He responds that it's worth it to see his brother happy. Additionally, we see that the winners of the talent show were Rowling and Greg's replacement with their magic tricks. And even though Rodrick and his band didn't win, they gained more followers on the internet. Finally, we see that Rodrick and Greg started getting along better, and they were now more united than ever. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more interesting movies.